Think of a rule in Sanskrit, Mama Sanskrit sounding, obviously twins coming in here, Meltown, Equinel, Mayopa, Pate, Watacha, Pimana, Kawaya.
It's
trying
Jack.
to think of a rule in Sanskrit,
He's
Mama
riffing.
Sanskrit sounding, obviously twins coming in here, Meltown, Equinel, Mayopa, Pate, Watacha, Pimana, Kawaya.
Where Jack started to riff, and somebody recorded it.
Obviously twins coming in here, Meltown, Equinel,
I
Mayopa,
found
Pate,
this thing
Watacha, Pimana, Kawaya.
years ago when there was no MP3 format. There was no wave format. It was a real media audio, RM. You don't even remember RM, I don't think. And I found it. Real media, right. I found it drifting out there. I also found it in a .au format. And I saved it. And here it is, now in MP3. Obviously. It's the sound of language. It's Jack. Welcome to the live ModPo webcast for Chapter 7, Week 6 of ModPo 2015. And I'm really happy to be here. So glad a lot of you are tuning in. There's a bit of excitement out there about this week's webcast. So there's a lot of people who are beats. And Zach, will you turn the camera on Kirby, who is set up for the occasion? He's got a pink beret. He's got the aviators. I don't think they did aviators, but this is not bad. Got the beard, rocking the black shirt, and he doesn't have a mic. Carlos, give him a mic. Yeah. He's going to say something to get us ready for the beatniks.
It's a groovin' day, beatsters out there, and let's wait to see what's coming down.
Can we give Kirby a round of applause for getting into the spirit? Oh, snap! Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay. Good morning. We have here to my far left, your right, Mariel Brapta. Did I pronounce that name right? And she is a devoted and dedicated and actually quite brilliant community TA, and we're so pleased that you're here. And then next to her, of course, Lily Applebaum. Good morning, Lily.
Good morning.
Did you bring coffee for the both of us? No.
No, this is all
I need
free.
coffee, and the toad needs coffee. Caffeine, caffeine. Listen, by the way, I love this toad. I am a toad defender. My problem is Wilbur, not the toad. I love the toad. And I'm Al, and this is Jason here at the table. I'm so glad to have you at the table.
It's a pleasure to be at the table.
You're totally amazing. You are an amazing person. And I wish that both of the courses you're teaching for the English Department of the University of Pennsylvania next semester were MOOCs, because people would get to do your fabulousness. Zach, we're going to have to turn around to Anna Strong, who is also rocking the aviators. Did you just steal them from Kirby?
No, these are mine.
Oh, those are yours. Okay. And there's Anna.
Should have a cigarette, too.
Good morning.
Like
Cigarettes? Yeah, well, we'd have to cover the smoke detectors in here. We're sitting in the back. We have Carlos Sanchez. Good morning, Carlos. Rocking the tech, we have Zach Gardner, who's actually the only real hipster in the room, though he won't admit it. And
angel-headed hipster.
And Chris Martin, who's an angel-headed hipster, doing the audio and kind of masterminding the whole thing. And we have hanging out, and Zach's coffee is blocking my view of these people. We have Erica Kaufman. Good morning, Erica.
Good morning, Al.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Say in a sentence what's exciting you about ModPo in the last couple of days or weeks. What's the hottest, funnest thing?
Last night in my office hours, we were having a really interesting conversation about close reading.
Cool. Was that fun? And what's the thread? Oh, it's just Erica's office hour. Probably.
Yeah, but I asked John to put up a discussion forum so more people could chat.
Okay. That's cool. Thank you. Good morning. Emily Harnett in New Haven, Connecticut. Good morning, Emily. Emily, can you hear us? There is Emily. She's there, but she's not responding. Zach will try to make contact. Good morning, Emily. Okay, she's just being Emily. She's thinking. Max McKenna. Good morning to Max in Chicago. Are you there?
I'm here, Al. Good morning.
Good morning. It's 7:35, and you got your coffee. Oh no, it's 8:35. Sorry.
We're only an hour behind.
Yeah, you're okay. But Molly is dealing with 6:35 a.m. in Los Angeles. Good morning, Molly.
Good morning.
Hi. How are you?
Confused. It's still dark out.
This is a tough time of year for that. So just a couple of hellos and announcements, and then we'll get right into our conversation about the beats. First of all, there's going to be a meetup in Richmond, Virginia on Saturday, Halloween morning, 11 a.m. local time, Richmond, Virginia, at the Urban Farmhouse Market and Cafe. Urban Farmhouse, that sounds so Richmond these days. Urban Farmhouse Market and Cafe at 3015 Norfolk Street, Richmond, Virginia. And if you just put that in your Google map, you can get there, or your favorite search engine mapping thingy. And there is parking. And this is going to be hosted by ModPo teaching fellow Caroline Henzik-Gongola. And Caroline's got it all organized. She's also got a colleague coming there. And please just go to the meetups schedule. And Anna, is that linked to the left side of every page? Or is it? It is, right? So just look at meetups, and you can get the calendar, and that's on there. The ModPo audio update, which was done by Lily and Anna and me yesterday afternoon, is now linked to the, or will soon be, yes, Zach, will be soon linked to the audio updates page, which is on the left side of every ModPo page. Check it out. There's also, I sent you a note about this. Everybody received it. And I'd like you to check out, among other things, our quick response to Colleen Knight's question about subjectivity, objectivity. There's also, it's a pretty good thing. I mean, I think Lily and Anna were particularly brilliant about this. There's also a robust discussion in a thread called This Whole Subject-Object Thing, which was created by, I believe, Colleen, who's in Toronto, and was incited by our encounter with Death of a Toad. So I highly recommend that for those of you who are still confused about the way we use the word subject. Another announcement, there's a YouTube video out there floating around. This is a video of my rather hyperbolic recent keynote talk at a Learning from MOOCs #2 conference at Columbia Teachers College. I'm sorry for its hyperbole, but I've seen a nice summary of the point I was trying to make, retweeted, and as follows. The real innovation of MOOCs, learning communities of unprecedented size come together and interact to make something new. And I would add that the course itself must be open and dynamic and responsive enough to change as the result of that newness that the community makes each time it gathers together. And that's a high standard, but that's what ModPo is aiming to do. Speaking of that, because he was there in the audience, I just want to welcome Ben Wiggins here, who's the Director of Digital Learning Initiative. Zach, can we get Ben? How did you do that? Oh, I see from behind us. There's Ben. Wave, Ben. He is the Director of Digital Learning Initiatives in the School of Arts and Sciences at the University of Pennsylvania. This is his maiden voyage in a live webcast. He's seeing how crazy this whole thing is. He is a PhD in American Studies. Apparently, he's an historian of risk.
All right, so like best
So, I mean,
everybody.
it seems to me that this is the right place because there's so many things. Right, Chris Martin? So many things that can go wrong. And I'm hoping, since Twitter is public, I didn't ask you permission to put out your Twitter handle. It is Wiggins Benjamin, at Wiggins Benjamin, and you should tweet him. You should tweet him, tell him about things that work in ModPo so he can implement them all over the place. Welcome, Ben. Two other announcements. The ModPo Teacher Resource Site has launched its Meet the ModPo Teachers feature. I just wanted to do that announcement so I could say Teachers feature. Meet the ModPo Teachers feature. Okay, so you can find it in, you can just click on For Teachers. It's there. The first installment is an interview with Christine Rao, who is a professor of English at Nassau Community College and who is a community TA and has been associated with ModPo for several years. And our goal here is to find teachers who are using ModPo, to feature them, have them talk about how they use ModPo, and so forth. And finally, an announcement about Nicola Quinn, who's one of our favorite community TAs. She is, I believe, in either Wales or Southwest England, and I would say Wales.
She would also say that she prefers her name to be pronounced Nicola.
Nicola Quinn. Thank you for saying
She
that.
once complimented me that I got it right, so that's how I know.
She's great. She's great. And so Nicola has created an app. It's called Poetry Picture Puzzle. And it's going to be released on Saturday, October 24th. That's coming up. So she'll create a new thread about this so you can find out about it. The app is free, and all revenue from the app, this is something that she created, not at our behest, all the revenue from the app will be sent to the Kelly Writers House to be plowed back into the costs that we incur to do ModPo because Ben doesn't give us any money to do ModPo. So we might as well. Sorry, Ben, that was a little dig. It's totally unnecessary. Did you bring some money with you? You can. That's great. Anyway, ModPo is essentially self-generating. We don't charge you anything. And Nicola has created an app she thinks could generate a little income. Basically, they click on the ads, and I don't know how it works, actually. So we want you to review the app, even if you're not interested in playing with the app. Review the app, because apparently this is vital for good ranking. So you can go to the iTunes store and look for it, Poetry Picture Puzzle. She'd like to hear feedbacks on errors. And she made the app because, as she said, ModPo has given me so much, I wanted to give back in a slightly creative way, and it's not just slightly. And so you can find out more about it at www, that's superfluous, enquin.rocks. enquin.rocks. Okay, great. So we have so many poems we could talk about today. It's the Beats. We have someone on the phone. We have someone who called in the voicemail. We have a couple people in the room here, including CJ. We have Mary at the table. And Anna, who's on the phone? Let's take a call.
It's our buddy Philip Drexler calling from Austin, Texas.
Fantastic. Philip, how are you? Good morning.
I'm fine, Al.
Great.
Listen, what you should do, Al, is you should post those 6 propositions on the internet so that people can hear from the horse's mouth what you said at that conference.
Thank you so much, Phil. Yeah, I guess what you want me to do is transcribe those 6 points. That's easy to do. I didn't. I think you asked me for a transcript. I think you were the one, and it turned out that I didn't. As Ben knows, it was totally improvised, so I didn't write anything down. But thank you.
Well, you probably don't remember, but I sent you a Word document where I wrote it all down.
Oh, well, you got it.
So
all right, thanks, Phil. Thank you. And how are the Beats this week? How are you doing with the Beats?
Oh, I'm doing fine, Al.
Great.
And I know you usually talk about the ModPo main syllabus, but I can't help but talk about the Garden of Love.
Yeah.
And how Ginsberg completely subverts the form of the music that he chooses to set that piece to.
Yeah, that's great. Let me defer talking at length about a ModPo Plus poem, particularly as the first question, because most people haven't consulted it yet. But I think I'll just say, thank you for raising it. I think I'll just say that one of the things that's so impressive about the Beats is that they were willing to go back to a form that in the early days they would have dismissed out of hand, which is the ballad. So this is the alternative, dark, witchy, dark Scottish dark forests of Central Europe folkloric Grimm's fairy tale ballad, where there's a lot of mysticism and irrationalism and even Kabbalism, and so the return to the ballad was complicated for Ginsberg, but once he did it, he rediscovered William Blake, who is completely not a kind of balladeer. He was a balladeer about innocence and experience. And so what you're referring to is a poem that Ginsberg sang, and which eventually made its way to an LP. And that LP, which is rare, has all been transferred, digitized into Pen Sound, and the entire experience is on Pen Sound, and you can listen to him sing Blake. Then Ann Waldman, who was a friend of his, took a bunch of Beat stuff from the Beats, being a second-generation Beat and also a second-generation New York School Lower East Side person, complicated lineage, and she took not the long Whitmanian lines, but the ballad, and she really made the witchy ballad, the outlier ballad, something. So it's a beautiful, complicated history. And Phil, thank you for calling. And
can I make this one point, though, Al?
Yeah.
He not only subverts the poetic form of the ballad, he subverts the musical form of the waltz, which was the high church Habsburg Vienna music.
Yeah.
And he does it in a bluegrass style, which is the white Southern conservative fundamentalist down-home religion. Music. So
he's doing a lot of subverting there.
Subversion.
Yes, he is. But he is also subverting the ballad by using Blake, just by reintroducing Blake. So it's complicated, and I love the way it follows chapter 4, where we have McKay and Cullen, who are working with traditional forms, and Ruth Lechlitner in Chapter 3. I love the way it follows. There is a radical return to form. Thank you, Phil, for calling. And we'll talk to you soon, man. Thank you.
Bye.
Happy Beat Week. Thanks,
Okay.
Anna. Great. So I'm going to throw out some poems, and I'm just going to ask Lily to pick one that she thinks we should just talk about. 215-573-9752, 215-573-9752. There is a lot of action in the forum. The forum is called Discussion during and after the 10/21/15 live webcast session. There's a lot going on, so we're going to consult that. Meantime, I'll just list some poems, and Lily, you get to choose. Okay, so we have Ginsberg's Howl. We have Baraka's prose piece, How You Sound. We have Baraka's Incident. We have Creeley's I Know a Man. We have Kerouac's list of a technique for modern prose and his semi-riffing and riffing prose. And we have the new poem in ModPo this year, Bob Kaufman's Jail Poems. There's a lot others, but which one would you think would be profitable for us to talk about?
I'm kind of torn between Incident and I Know a Man, because I saw some conversation on the discussion forums. It seemed like people were having trouble with I Know a Man.
Okay, I
so
Know a
maybe that's a
Man
good one.
or Incident. So I'm going to take a poll from the Google Hangouts. So Erica, Incident or I Know a Man? Which one should we talk about?
I Know a Man.
Okay, great. Emily, are you with us, Emily? Yes. 1 minute. Yes.
I Know a Man.
Okay. Incident. Should we talk about Incident or I Know a Man? I mean, they're both great, but.
I Know a Man is one of my favorites, so I'm
Okay,
going with
Max,
I Know a
it
Man.
sounds like it's 2-0 so far. Make it 3-0 so the Mets can beat Chicago. Sorry, little Chicago dig there.
We're already there. Yeah. I guess in the spirit of the Mets beating Chicago, I'll make it 3-0.
Okay. Well, so Molly, there's no way you can do anything to this vote, so we're going to do I Know a Man. I'm going to play one of the recordings. Molly, did you? I Know a Man. You want to make it unanimous?
Oh yeah, you knew I would go there.
Yeah, I did actually. Okay, so let me see if I can find it here. It's further down. My instructions are further down. Okay, I'm going to play 2 versions of it. Ready, Chris?
Otherwise, I know a man. As I said to my friend, because I am always talking, John, I said, which was not his name. The darkness surrounds us. What can we do against it, or else shall we? And why not buy a goddamn big car? Drive, he said, for Christ's sake, look out where you're going.
Actually, I'll only play that one because that's the Harvard recording and you have the laughter. What I'm going to do is, and I want everybody to be really brief, you're putting one thing into play, 1 point into play briefly. I'm going to invite everybody to do it. So, Jason, one thing, throw one thing. What should people know that's inside Jason's head about this amazing poem?
Why is this with the beats?
Yeah, why is this with the beats? Fantastic. Lily?
I would caution against a symbolic reading of the at first, because there's very sparse words, but I've seen a lot of symbolic readings that kind of confused.
That's good. Symbolic readings are a real temptation, particularly because the name is John and because, et cetera. Mary?
I find the line breaks absolutely amazing.
Line breaks.
And just even the broken word surrounds. Surrounds.
Surrounds. Okay, good. Carlos, one thing?
Mine's a question. Why the shortening of said and your?
Okay. The use of SD and YR. So it's texting before its time, possibly, as has been said. Okay. Erica Kaufman, one thing about I Know a Man?
I'd second the line breaks.
Yeah, line breaks, good. Emily, I Know a Man?
I would talk about narrative and what's the deal with this car that's there and not there.
What's the first thing you said? I didn't catch the noun.
Narrative.
Narrative. Okay, cool. Great. Max, one thing?
I would, yes, underscore the shortening of said and why that word and why it gets sort of telegraphed or shorthanded.
Excellent. And Molly?
I would talk about the title.
The title, I Know a Man. Okay, so actually, and Anna, Strong, thought on this?
We're having some kind of connectivity issues with the phone,
Oh.
so whoever's trying to call in, I'm sorry. We're
Okay. It may not be us. It may just be a problem with the
maybe
call.
a problem with
Okay.
the phone, but keep trying.
Okay. That's not an I know a man comment, but that's fine because you.
It's not one.
It's not.
Okay. All right. What we're going to do is
talk about the darkness. There
I
you go.
want darkness. What I'm going to ask each of us to do. We rarely do this, right? Because we have a limited amount of time in a webcast. But what I'm going to ask you to do is respond briefly as we go around again to your own question or theme. But before we do that, I want everybody near a microphone, everyone, to try to perform this poem. And I don't want to make a joke out of this, but I want you not so much to imitate Bob Creeley and his amazing Massachusetts accent, Western Massachusetts accent. I don't want you necessarily to imitate the quavering of the voice, although I will try to do that because I think it's so important. What I want us to do is together and distinctly to manage the lineation in the performance, because we recommend to every ModPo person everywhere in the world that in order to really get this poem, you have to actually be able to say to someone else, preferably when you're driving a car, or when you're in a passenger in someone else's car, to create the sense of urgency of the performance. So on the count of 3, we're all going to perform it, and then we're going to go back to Jason and start around for some answers about I Know a Man. Okay, don't forget to include the title with respect to Molly's point. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. I know a man. As I
said to my friend, because I am always talking, John I said, was not his name. Darkness surrounds. What can we do against, or else shall we, and why not? By a goddamn big car. Drive, she said, for Christ's sake, look out where you're going.
You know what? I'm going to have Zach extract that audio, and we're going to add it to the ModPo syllabus. Okay, Jason, really quickly, add something in response to the issue you raised.
I think that part is I am always talking. Not me, which sometimes I am, but that Creeley is in the condensation there is a sense of an ongoingness, perhaps, that ties him in to the long lines of the beats that we'd expect.
Interesting. You've asked the most complicated question, and my answer to your question would be it doesn't really belong, but I think thematically he's countering or dealing with the beat phenomenon of the long drive, which supposedly has a lot of meaning. I think he's undercutting that and satirizing it, but also living out in the Kirby sense of the beret and the glasses, living out the alternative life and the freedom, but actually trying not to be beat necessarily. Okay, I promise not to say anything because we're going to go around. Lily?
I guess in the spirit of undercutting some of what is stereotypical about beats, maybe it's important. My point was about not starting with the symbolic reading. I think especially the most difficult word for that is the darkness surrounds us. I think that's an interesting point to try and first resist a symbolic reading, because that can be filled with so many things, and push yourself to imagine this as an actual conversation, or one man talking at another man taking place in a real live car, and then use that, picturing this scenario, to work your way through the poem.
Yeah, and the darkness surrounds us because they're driving at night. Mary, quickly?
I think this speaks also, my question about line breaks speaks also to narrative to a certain extent, and to the beats question, because it turns out it is one long sentence. And we pause at certain places because we're used to reading left to right, and then we have to drop our eyes down, so we're swerving so the poem is enacting this driving.
We learned a lot from William Carlos Williams, whose lines depended from each other, as in dependent, as in pendant, as in Calder. Right? And Creeley, is really living out the promise of the lineation of Williams, which Williams didn't live out, even though he talked about it a lot. So, and I think you have to be a truly alternative lifestyle character like Creeley which Williams wasn't, in order to really push. So that's a very cool, almost sociological statement, interestingly enough. Carlos, quickly, a follow-up to your own point?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if the shortening of said and your sort of mirrors how Creeley has condensed two of the central tenets of the beats, saying, talking, and then also the self, getting at the self, getting at your own voice. And so his poem is real short, it's condensed, and then so are those two central tenets, said and your. But I mean, they also aren't, because he comments on a lot.
Good. Cool, Carlos. Thank you. Erica, quickly?
To follow up on the line break question, what I'm thinking about after reading this out loud is that there's so little that you can actually grip onto in this poem. Everything is so abstract and undoing itself, like the name John, which wasn't his name, that the line breaks are really what keeps you in the poem.
Very cool. Thank you so much. Emily?
When I said narrative, I was thinking about how effective that car is in the last stanza of this poem. I don't really think of beat poems or necessarily sort of modern poems having turns the way that sonnets do, but the way that car used really gives it a type of rhetorical turn that's almost Dickinsonian and really wonderful.
Nice. I love how Dickinson gets in there. Max?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Yeah, I think that this sort of shorthanding of said, just said, the choice of said, of speech, of saying is key, I think, and it sort of calls attention to the compressedness of the poem in general, but also seems to want to say something about speech too. And I think this poem is, to go to Jason's question, why is this poem included in the beats? It is a kind of interesting choice given how much like Ginsberg and Kerouac, for instance, are all about like there's almost like diarrhea, like explosions of speech, right? This kind of like blah blah blah, and then you get Creeley here, who's all about like saying is this very terse, compressed thing. Even the word said can't even be said entirely.
Thank you, Max. Molly, last word on this poem?
Well, I think the title speaks to the question of narrative, that there's this perpetual sort of storytelling state of mind the beats are always in. I know a guy, this happened and this thing, but then I'm thinking this about it, and it's sort of, it still maintains that diarrhea-like quality, as Max put it. It's just a lot briefer in Creeley's case.
Yeah, it's great. Lily, thank you for picking this poem. Can you conclude by very, very briefly just saying why? I know you also wanted the Baraka poem, but why this? Why does it continue to fascinate us, this poem?
It just says a lot in very little space, which is unusual in this week, because the beats tend to take a more maximal approach that I guess follows from first thought, best thought, and riffing and all those things. So I think for that reason, context has a lot to do with it, but it is so sparse and so full of such interesting enjambment and line breaks, like Erica was saying, that it seems you know it's trying to say something and you're not quite always sure what. So it's interesting in that way.
Great. Thank you all for that. That was fantastic. Let's go to the forums. There are a lot of conversation going on in the forums, and Layla Hughes, who's become a favorite of all of ours, ModPo 2015er, and she is asking about first thought, best thought, and improvisation. The subtitle of her thread is Cool But No. First thought, best thought, spontaneous prose, improvisation. So, let's respond to that improvisationally. I want to take a vote. We're going to go all the way around. I want to take a vote. I want each person to vote yes or no, and you have no other option for this first round. Is spontaneous writing possible? So that would be your first yes or no. And can the first thought be the best thought? So you've got two questions, yes or no on each. Is spontaneous writing possible? And can the first thought sometimes be the best thought? Jason?
Yes, no.
Yes, no. Lily?
I would say no, yes.
Oh, no! Was that spontaneous? Never mind.
No, I think I've been thinking about this all week.
I know, I'm kidding. Mary?
Yes, yes.
Carlos?
I'm just going to say yes.
What are you, some kind of radical?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes. So, Erica?
Yes,
Yes, yes. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you're so liberated. Emily?
No, yes.
No, yes. Okay. Max?
No, yes.
Wow, you sound so Chicago, like doer, like you're voting in a mayoral election in Chicago. I say no to spontaneity.
It's a lot earlier for Max and Molly than it is for us.
Okay.
We give them credit.
Molly?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is elaborate on this. Let me say someone is trying to call repeatedly. Is that what's happening? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to ask the person who's trying to call us to write in the forums and stop trying to call us. Or not. So we can open up the phone line to someone else. 215-573-9752. Anna, will you ask that person not to call us? And I hate to say something so negative about an open forum, but you know. We'll get it worked out. Or you can also call 512-95-ModPo, 512-95-ModPo, and leave a voicemail. Okay, Lily and Max, elaborate on your answers. What yours was? No, yes?
To spontaneous. Is spontaneous writing possible? And yes to can sometimes the first thought be the best thought.
Okay, and Max, yours was the same, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I want to get to Erica, who said yes, yes?
Mm.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so I'd like Lily and Erica to offer us some wisdom on this. Spontaneous prose is not possible, right? Explain.
Well, okay, so if you take the idea of spontaneous prose is that you can somehow think and write in the same moment just exactly what's coming up and get it all out. I would say it's not possible because you're always doing an interpretive step by putting what you're thinking into language, and then that's not spontaneous.
Okay, Erica, now you have a chance to take what I would consider to be, I don't know, I don't want to characterize your position, but a kind of a utopian position, maybe.
Maybe I just love Gertrude Stein too much because the idea of spontaneous writing reminds me of Gertrude Stein's definition of genius.
Yeah.
Wow. Where, you know, the idea of listening and speaking and writing at the same time. And I also think that it's closely connected to what I study, which is writing-based teaching, and the idea that one can...
What? Say that again.
Writing-based teaching.
Writing-based teaching.
And the
one
idea
can learn as you write.
Yeah, the idea that you can actually train your mind to treat the pen as a direct connector.
That's very cool.
So
Lily,
you're
you get a
thinking
chance.
through the pen.
You get a chance to make one quick rejoinder to that before we go to the second question.
Well, I mean, Erica obviously knows a lot more about that aspect than
You're deferring?
I do.
You're deferring?
No, I'm beginning my comment by saying something. But I would say that you're still... It seems to me that there's still some kind of interpretive step, which is not a bad thing, but I think particularly this week, what we're actually dealing with is people who want to give the effect of spontaneity without necessarily having that been truly part of the process.
Wow, and I think partly, may I ask, and I think this is true, but I'll ask it to you, of you. I think you're partly responding to the presumptuous naivete, is that possible, both those things, of some of the beats, particularly Kerouac and Ginsberg, who came on as if what they were doing was very spontaneous, when in fact, in the case of Ginsberg, it's very wrought and
I wouldn't say
prosodic.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say naivete at all. I think it's just a difference between, in some ways, any time that you're saying you're giving your process in your work. For example, Williams' Portrait of a Lady was maybe one of our first poems that made the process really explicit. We know that the internal voice of Williams the man is not the internal speaker voice in the poem. It's an effect, but it's an important one, so it's not naive. It's just a rhetorical effect. So I guess that's how I feel about the spontaneity of the beat writing, is that it's maybe they talk a big talk about spontaneity and how it's important and whatever, but it's also a rhetorical effect, and I don't think that that's naive.
Okay, cool. Let's go to the second question, which is, and then we got somebody on the phone, right? The second question is it possible for the first thought to be the best thought? And I'd like to ask a couple of people who are squarely in academic mode, right? Because squarely, did I use that word square in the Beat Week? Ooh. Dan, you're supposed to smile at that. That was funny. It's too early in the morning.
You want to like chill out a little
Your
bit.
A's, you call those aviators A's? Okay, so I'd like to ask Jason, who is, at the end of a career we all hope, because we want you to obviously get the degree and go on, but the end of a career, but is also a poet who's also spent a lot of time, I'm guessing, struggling between the poetic mode, in which first thought is more often best thought, and the academic mode, in which case first thought is usually the worst thought. And then I'd like to ask Emily just a reaction to that. I don't know what your answer was to that. It was yes, I think, wasn't it?
No.
No. Okay, good.
That no, I think that that the first thought is always hiding another thought, and that in poetry, for me, and I think, in reading Ginsberg, I can feel this happening, even though how wrought the lines are, that sound and the embodiment of the words are leading to words that are not being rationally summoned in argument. They're being summoned through the body and through sound.
You're taking a really interesting and unusual approach to the notion of first thought, because you actually think, and this is true of you, if I may say so, right? Your first thought, the first thing you say is generally not what's going to happen later. As you, in the Erica Kaufman sense, as you begin to speak, and I assume this happens in writing sometimes, you begin to discover what it is that you're trying to say, which is, we are socialized as teachers and students not to do that. And we have this long conversation about your brilliant way of being a ModPo TA, and everybody loves what you say always, but it takes a while to get there because you're actually not sure when you begin. Some speakers, and Lily actually does the same thing, but you're also really adept at, like, you've got it, you somehow work it out, right? And those are two different styles, but end up being the same. You enact it as a thinker. So, Emily, you've disappeared from view. Oh, there you are. Are you ducking from this academic question? And are you jealous of first thought, best thoughters?
Well, what I was thinking when I said that your first thought can be your best thought, and I do think that's true even in academic settings, your first thought just needs to be re-examined, and I guess, yeah, you can return to your first thought, but it's always something that you have to work for, and I think believing in intuition and your first spontaneous thought is a good skill to have in any type of intellectual context.
Great, thank you. We're going to take a phone call, but before we do, I just want to play a few seconds of Ginsberg performing Howl, and this is the famous Ashcan Rantings section, where we get a highly wrought, prosodic, carefully deployed, new kind of jazzy rhythmic thing, but in this case, I'm kind of on Lily's side. I really don't think this is the least bit spontaneous, but it is a style. All styles are conscious, or most of them, with due respect to what's been said by Erica and others. And this is a conscious, spontaneous seeming style. It's the style of spontaneity, but it can't possibly be spontaneous. If it is, then he's taking whatever Kerouac, he's on whatever Kerouac's on, in riffing on trying to think of a rule in Sanskrit, blah, 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 that stuff, which he could only do when he was out of his mind, I would say, which is, those of us who don't do drugs and don't drink to excess kind of are envious once in a while of the dissolute life of someone like Jack, and it's a romantic envy and not really the best and healthiest thing, but it's okay to have once in a while when you've got someone like Jack who can get really blasted at party and then start doing things. Frank O'Hara, by the way, was quite similar in the way he would write poems at parties by standing up at a typewriter, and you could talk about spontaneity in O'Hara as well. But so here's Ashcan Rantings.
Peyote solidities of halls, backyard green tree cemetery dawns, wine drunkenness over the rooftops, storefront burrows of tea-head, joyride, neon, blinking traffic light, sun and moon and tree vibrations in the roaring winter dusts of Brooklyn, Ashcan Rantings and kind king light of mind.
I mean, it is just the case that that is just brilliant poetry, and the fact that most of American poetic culture, official mainstream culture, not only ignored that, but decried it as unpoetic is insane. Because it's so, if you just lineated it in some traditional way, you would get all those internal rhymes, they become external rhymes. Peyote, solidities of halls, right? The stringing of nouns, storefront burrows of tea-head, joyride, neon, blinking traffic light. It's just Ashcan Rantings itself. It's just, it's Gerard Manley Hopkins. It's Emily Dickinson. It's Marianne Moore. It's amazing. It's poetic. It seems spontaneous. It probably wasn't spontaneous, but who the fuck cares if it's as long as it spawned an effort at people to let themselves go at the end of the line and restore the Whitmanian pseudo-spontaneity. Walt revised Leaves of Grass till the end. So it's okay to have both. All right, we're going to the phone. Anna Strong, who do we have?
It's Nicola.
Oh, Nicola!
Yeah. Calling from West Sussex.
West Sussex. Nicola, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you speak up a little bit?
Yep, okay. I'm just a bit nervous because you guys are like rock stars.
Wait a minute. So, Nicola, you spoke with us 2 or 3 years ago, and it was great. I remember your voice.
Yeah, well, I just wanted a few points to make about this week. Anthony Risser mentioned in one of the forums about Mr. Robot. So I just want to give that a plug because the main character's internal monologues are so like Hal, and the whole cosmic fascism thing is just mind-blowing. That is definitely worth a watch.
Great, thank you.
In this week.
Yep.
And this week I've been trying to catch up with ModPo Plus, and I, for the first time, heard the Edwin Torres's Dude Descending a Staircase, which
Dude Descending a Staircase.
It reminds me so much of my favourite Boccioni sculpture, which I actually posted in the forum this morning. So that has absolutely blown my mind this week. I don't know. And I also got to watch this morning the Beat Legacy discussion, and the poem that Diane de Prima wrote for Amiri Baraka after he died just was, I don't know, the end bit was just staggering. And I don't know if I can keep my voice calm enough to actually read just the last bit, because I just think it is so amazing. Okay, here we go. Hold on. Deep breath. Right, okay. What matters? The memory of the poem in thousands of minds. That quantum of energy passed over, passed all the way over to the other, to thousands of others. What matters? Revolution. What matters? Revelation. What matters? The poem taking root in thousands of minds. I just absolutely adore that.
Can we have snaps for Nicola Quinn? Nicola, would you stay on the line? Oh, everything you said was fantastic, and I'm so glad. And thank you for the app. Thank you for the app.
Oh, yeah, I can't. I'll really love to discuss that. There's also Baron Getty said after Hal, I never saw the world like that before, and I feel the same like that after ModPo. So that's
that's so sweet. Listen, would you stay on the line? I'm going to play. This may be a little complicated for Chris Martin, who's dealing with some audio challenges at the moment. I'm going to ask Chris to make it even more complicated. It's a 3-ring circus, Chris. I'm going to play Dude Descending a Staircase by Edwin Torres. It is so, Nicola, your voice is going to go down a little low, I have a feeling, while he adjusts to this. But we'll come back to you. I want you to just say what you love so much about it. This is Edwin Torres, who is now offering us through ModPo Plus the second response to Duchamp, right? So you have Duchamp, the painting, which is a cubist rendering or multi-temporal, if not multi-perspectival rendering of a nude descending a staircase, which was just outrageous and revolutionary and really put things together when William Carlos Williams literally saw it at the Armory show, he started laughing uncontrollably. Williams felt like, I finally found really an affirmation of what I want to do, because Williams had been kind of a Keatsian poet before that, and when he saw the Armory show, he just laughed, gleeful laugh. Said, "Oh yes, yes, yes." Okay, and then we have X.J. Kennedy, Nude Descending a Staircase, in which he does what the ModPo people typically think is a retrenchment, a return to a traditional approach to portraiture, and then we have Edwin Torres commenting in his own beat-influenced, New Yorican Poetry Cafe-influenced performance piece, Dude Descending a Staircase, which is, I can say, kind of a satire of machismo encountering Duchampian modernism, and Torres performing that in a satirical way or ironical way. Here it is.
Boccioni falling from a startled cavalry horse to his death enveloped in the curve created by his gamma, or Dude Descending a Staircase. We shift the mood a little bit. Yeah, deadass, I can give you deadass. You want deadass? Deadass, I got it. You want mini deadass? You want it? I can give it. I can give deadass. Number 7, deadass Arini, deadass Moniker, Luncheon, deadass Contini, Contusion, deadass Spool, School, Myrtle, Cram, Pasty. You want pasty deadass? I can give pasty deadass. Slow-mo, you want slow-mo, Slobovich, fantasy deadass, milty earwax, shaman whiskey? I got it all, deadass. All you want. Yeah, I can give you deadass. What do you got for me?
Isn't that great? Now, you can't really hear it clearly. It's a better recording in ModPo Plus, and there's also a video discussion of us talking about it. But I just would, Nicola, stay on the line, but I'd invite a couple of people, maybe Max first, just to get us started. Nicola is trying to get other ModPoers interested in going to ModPo Plus to listen to Edwin Torres' third response to Duchamp, and I just think it's fantastic. What do you think, Max?
It seems really angry. Which might inspire some people to go check it out. I think it's. I don't know how I feel.
Max, what is the speaker saying? You want dead ass? I'll give you dead ass. You want pasty? Pasty? I'll give you pasty.
Well, the dead ass thing, it's like I don't know. It's a bit like the fuck you half ass. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's one guy calling out another guy for being like not as cool as he is or something. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that poem.
I'm so glad. It's so unusual for you, Max, not to be sure that it's just, this is a moment, I'm going to mark my calendar. This was a day when Max wasn't sure. Molly, what do you think of this thing? Molly O'Neill, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, just unmuting. I'm not sure. This is actually my first time listening to it. So, is he saying deadass or dadas? Is it a play on dadas?
I think it's a pun. It's a performance poem. I've never seen it written out. And there's also a reference that we talk about in the video or the audio, where at the end in the last stanza there's a reference to Slobodan Milosevic and genocide. Pasty is referring to whiteness, as in racial whiteness. You want pasty? I give you pasty. Anyway, I don't know. You know, it's your first time, so I guess there's more to be done. Carlos, what do you think? What do you think of the performance? So Carlos, like, no, don't call on me.
What do I think about the performance? Yeah, it was mad. It was good, though. I also wasn't sure if he was saying dadass or deadass. But
or
yeah,
Dadaist. You want Dadaist? I'll give you Dadaist. So I think what we should do next fall for ModPo is invite Edwin Torres to come to sit in here and do one of his amazing performances, and then integrate Edwin into the course a little more, because Edwin's a friend of the Writers' House. He's on Penn Sound. This is one little piece. He was vital to the emergence of the New Yorican Poetry Cafe, and Edwin Torres, when MTV decided that performance poetry was cool for about 15 minutes in the 90s, Edwin was one of the people that they featured on television for a moment. Anna, I want to go to Nicola, though. Nicola, you're still there?
Yes, I am.
Would you just tell us briefly, before we hang up, tell us briefly why you're so interested in Edwin Torres in this performance?
Well, I love the repetition is reminiscent of the cubism and it sort of progresses into the power and aggression of the futurists.
Yeah.
And I just love the way it just encapsulates it all. And the piece I love, which I posted, is called Unique Forms of Continuity in Space. And this is like that form in poetry. That's it, really. That poetry in motion, that poetry in motion is so, that's very corny, I know, sorry, but the sculpture itself just speaks that, and I heard the poem and I thought, that's it. You know, it's just this combination of the cubism and the futurism and it's just mind-blowing. Thank you.
Nicola Quinn, it is never corny to say anything interesting or positive about a poem in this world in 2015. It is never corny. It is not corny that you are very much a part of this community. It's not corny at all that you stayed up night making this ridiculous app for us, because nothing's corny when it's creative. So thank you for being part of the family, and I hope you will never hesitate to call. Thank you.
I love you guys.
I love you too.
Bye
You're
now.
the best.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nicola Quinn. Okay, so how about the Twitter feed? Jason, just read some tweets. Because Ben Wiggins is a tweet guy. It's Wiggins Benjamin, right? Are you okay about all this traffic you're going to get? Okay, good. Jason?
I'm with Molly, dead ass or Doddist. Either way, it's hellish. From Teresa Pope. Shannon Ratliff writes Dadass or dead ass. Christine Coates writes, hi from Christine in Cape Town. It's 15:30 p.m. here. Shannon Ratliff writes, snap, 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 Nicola.
Let me say something about the Africa. Who was it, Mary?
Christine Coates.
Christine Coates, who sent us a book. So 9:30 in the morning Eastern Time turns out to be a perfect time for Africa, most of the Middle East, Central Europe. And we apologize for not doing more early morning, because it means that the whole West Coast, Western Canada, it's really kind of shuts them out. Doesn't shut Molly out, but so we try to mix up the times. We'll think about this. I think we should do maybe next year a really early morning one, so we can so that everybody in the what we here call the Far East, everybody in East Asia, the Philippines and so forth, because in the eastern part of Australia they need. This would be the end of their working day in the early evening, and we really need to give them that. So I'm glad that a couple more tweets.
Colette Bates writes, Ginsburg reading reminds me of UK horse racing commentary.
What? I love that.
I love that.
Somebody out there, some conceptualist needs to go and just read as a beat poem the horse racing commentary. That is so good. Does that mean, is she referring to the, and around the corner they come, and here comes Jason's mother, and she's coming around?
Yeah.
That was really a bad improv there, Jason's mother.
My mother's very speedy. Sanjeev writes, Ginsburg and Howell, not spontaneous, peyote solidities of halls, wine drunkenness, ashcan rantings, kind king light of mind.
Wow. Okay, cool. All right, so 215-573-9752. We're going to take one more call. If it comes, I'd like to introduce one more topic. It's from the forums. I'd like Erica to lead us on this one. I'm just going to read out the thread title. It comes from something that Julia Block in one of the teacher's videos said, and then this is Teresa Fraguada, who is a very active participant in ModPo 2015. Thank you, Teresa. Here's the thread title, Erica. The poem teaches us how to teach. The poem teaches us how to teach. I think this is a really important concept. Remember that summary of my keynote talk, which basically said that a MOOC, a massive open online course, is no good if it's inert and unresponsive to the large community in an unprecedented way, comes around and makes something more and new and different of the third order out of the materials, and then if the MOOC does not incorporate that and change according to that, then it's defeating its purpose of being so open globally. This is kind of an interesting version of that by saying that the poem iteratively teaches us how to teach. It's a really complicated thing, and as Erica gets ready to pontificate about this, because this is what she lives every day, I would just invite everybody once again to click on 4 teachers on the left side of any ModPo page and go explore, even if you're not a teacher. So, Erica, lead us in this. What's at stake here? What's going on?
Well, I was looking at that forum this morning actually, and what's interesting to me is that it seems as though the question that's embedded in this idea of the poem teaches us how to teach is, what do we do this week when we have a bunch of poems where we can't visually see them written down?
That's kind of a new thing this week, yeah.
So I was thinking a lot about that, and a lot about questions around Anne Waldman's rogue state, and how it's challenging to listen to without having the text written down in front of you.
The text actually was written down, but we don't include it.
Yeah, it's in the room of Never Grieve, I think.
Right.
So I was thinking a lot about that, and then also about the idea that one of the things that I love about Anne Waldman's work is that for her the poem really is an object that can teach one how to teach, because a poem like Rogue State exists in a lot of different forms. So there's an improvisational aspect to it. So the poem changes as the world that we're living in changes, and as the needs for what a poem should be doing changes.
That's so great, Erica. What's the difference? This is a leading question, but I just want you to say something on this topic because you're so good on it. What's the difference between a poem that is printed and where it's implied or it's made explicit by the poet that it should be used in that state and not improvised upon or revised or retyped or rewritten or repositioned, on one hand, and on the other hand, a poem like Rogue State, which Anne would be delighted for anyone to perform and adapt to whatever rogue as noun and adjective seems appropriate for the day, the moment of that performance. What's the difference between those two kinds of poetries?
One is restrictive, and the other one really gives you the experience of what it means to live inside of a poem.
Wow, that's really great. Thank you, and thank you, Teresa, for bringing this up. What we're going to do is we're going to take, I haven't gotten to Rogue State, so I guess I'm not going to play it, but it's such an amazing thing. I recommend that performance. It's the one we use in ModPo is a performance done in this room a bunch of years ago, which is just amazing. And what Anne Waldman did is, when she got to the really performative part, she took the microphone. She was standing at the podium near where I am. She took the mic, and she leaned back from it because she was going to raise her voice. This is a person who knows exactly how to perform the poem, even as she's improvising the nasty characters that she's referring to in the poem. So I highly recommend. Okay, Anna, who's on the phone?
We have Kate Williams calling from Charlotte, North Carolina, and she
Great.
has an absolutely killer question about close reading.
Okay, good morning, Kate.
Hi, Al. How are you?
Is this your first call?
Yes, it is.
How's ModPo going?
It's going really well. I'm enjoying it very much.
That's great. So we're getting to the end, so I'm afraid that we're going to have to give you a kind of clipped answer to your big question, but I'm hoping what you'll do is you'll go to the forums or you'll call a voicemail and give us a longer version of this. So let's hear it.
Well, I was just thinking about the idea of spontaneous poetry, the babble talk, and scatting type of poetry. Is there a need for close reading? Is there a deeper level? And basically that's it. It's a different way to receive poetry. You're not looking further for other meanings.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. When we get to the realm of babble flow, or extremely soundy or improvised, or in the case of Waldman, just a varied thing, where she just kind of gives you a new version, should we do less close reading? Should we relax our tendency to go deep? Right? So,
right.
Yeah, that's the question. So, Kate, would you hang up and listen to the answers through the webcast, and we'll thank you for calling from. I know that Richmond, Virginia is a long way from you, But actually, it's not so horribly long. Maybe you'll go to that Halloween meetup in Richmond.
Well, it's about 5 hours. That's
5
I
hours,
thought about
okay.
it.
For ModPo, 5 hours. You probably have kids you have to go Halloweening with, and I know I'm imposing on you, but do it for the toad. Thanks, Kate. Thank
Nice
you
to
so
talk to you,
much.
Al. All right.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Okay, does anybody want to take a stab at that? I mean, rust, die, pipe, ash, die, ding dong, ding, rust, cob, die, pipe. I'd rather be as permeated as Rusty's moonlight rourke as be perturated in this bile art of panatelier, where act the orshy rosh crushes my tired idiot hand. Oh Lord, I is coming to you'd soon's use ready as can readies by Mazatlan heroes pointed out Mexico's and all ye rhythmic bay fishermen don't hang fish I poppy in my Ramadan give diggerette sop of Arab squat the Berber types that hang fardels on their women back with Asleaf Eric, some son, with blady matter, I guess, as whoop a male, a mule, in sing-song, pathetic mule jump field by quite fluff smoke, North Carolina, near Weldon, Railroad Bridge, Roanoke, millionaire, high ridge, high party, high five, $1 million fin driver, skinfish, rod tong, apple finder, John Sunform, goodbye paw, mule, American song. Now, should we close read that? Lily says no because she just doesn't like Kerouac when he does babble flow. Jason, should we close read it? And what does close
Should,
reading
well,
mean?
I'm not big on should. So,
I know that.
But yeah, I think you can close read it.
Okay.
In a number of ways. You can close read it in the way that you would watch a dance performance and respond with your body.
Mm-hmm.
You can close read it and create bubbles of connections between words.
Mm-hmm.
So in a nonlinear sense, you can create little clusters and then see how those clusters interact with each other.
Emily, Max, Molly, quickly each. Can you close reading? Should you close read? Is it beneficial to close read? I mean, I've seen great close readings of Ella Fitzgerald's Scat, and I am in the middle of reading many books about free jazz in the late 50s and early 60s, where people close read. Is this in that category? Emily, say anything.
Yeah, I think it certainly is. And one of the things that's so striking about this is that sonic quality. But when we say reading, we don't just mean talking about textuality. We mean talking about all of the things that produce what we think of as literature and poetry. And so much of poetry is sound. So yeah, by all means, close read something, even if it seems that reading isn't the particular activity that it's looking for.
Right, that's good. I mean, even in the case of the babble flow that I just read or tried to perform, it has a semantic sense. It's really about an American experience. It's about railroading. It's about longing to be in the 30s. A guy in the 50s trying to be a hobo, not succeeding, but trying to do it verbally. Max, and then Molly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we're close reading in ModPo, and I mean what I do for close reading, for instance, it's like we're not looking for hidden meanings or things that are sort of buried beneath layers, right? Or so they're somehow smuggled in to a kind of surface texture performance, because that would go against the idea that this is spontaneous, right? Because how could he smuggle in all this deeper meaning like spontaneously? That doesn't make sense. What we mean is sort of reading not for depth but rather laterally, and trying to figure out why these spontaneous associations, why one is following the other. This is kind of the bubbles of meaning that Jason just said, and then that's where we start to get at a kind of like richer cultural historical understanding of why he would slip into some kind of African American dialect, which is a little weird, and then say something about Turks or something, and why all these things are happening around this pretense of spontaneity or liberation or something, and that's the better meaning of the poem, I think.
Really well put. It turns out that the semantic close reading could turn out to be a very negative situation, which is maybe what Lily is implying. But I think actually there it's not quite unintentional or liberal beat racism, but I also think it's some kind of engagement with tobacco culture that he's dealing with there.
Yeah.
So you've got the whole sharecropping situation, which is preceded by slavery, and you also have the competition with Middle Eastern tobacco. So he's really actually riffing on the sounds of the South there in a way that's very complicated. Molly, last thought on this?
Yeah, I think you really nailed it when you said sound, and I think in this case it's close reading and rereading more for experience of the poem than a hidden layer of meaning, like Max said. It's really about the feeling and the sound and the rhythm of it.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is the way we're going to wrap up. Usually we go around and we do final thoughts on the week, but what I'd like to do is something we do at the end of each Poem Talk episode, which is to gather paradise, to spread wide our narrow Dickinsonian hands, to gather a little something good that's going on in ModPo, that's going on in the poetry world, a poet you recommend that may be in ModPo Plus that people don't know about, a thread that you think is really cool, a person that you've encountered in ModPo, whatever it is, just a quick gathering of paradise. So we're going to go all the way around. We're going to start with Erica. I think I just lost Emily. Maybe she had to go to class. So yeah, she did. Okay. So we're going to go to Erica, then Max, then Molly, then Jason, and around the table. So Erica, gather some paradise. You weren't prepared for this, so
I was having a thought.
Okay. We can come back to you happily.
Yeah, come back to me.
Okay, Max.
I want to shout out to all the Chicago ModPo people. We're on a bit of a roll this month. Last week we had an awesome meetup with not only ModPo people but also just Penn alumni who knew nothing about ModPo who came out. They were all great. It was good getting to meet everybody there. It was in a really cool space, and we're doing another meetup this Saturday at the 24th. Starting at 2 p.m. at the Harold Washington Library downtown. I think that's on the 5th floor, but I'll send the exact details to the thread. So that's my Gathering Paradise. That's my shout out.
Great. That is great. Max, thank you so much for coordinating all this out there. I think that's fantastic. And hello to Chicagoland people who've found Max and others and are extending the ModPo conversation. Okay, Molly, Gather Paradise.
Yeah, I want to encourage people to go back to Williams in ModPo Plus and check out To Elsie, which I feel like we missed this year a little bit. We kind of skipped right over, and it just feels really relevant this week in conjunction with the Beats.
Totally relevant to this week because it is the inspiration of Howell, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
The pure products of America go crazy. Yeah. Okay. Good. Erica, Gather Some Paradise?
I think that what I would recommend is that people make a lot of use of pen sound in thinking about this week and moving forward, because as we saw with the Torres and the Anne Waldman and Jane Cortez, there's a lot that we can learn from listening.
Yes, fantastic. Jason, Gather Some Paradise?
I'm going to recommend 2 movies. One is Only Lovers Left Alive, which credits vampires with most of our literature, and it deals with a lot of stuff that we've talked about today. And then French movie by Robert Bresson called Au Hasard Balthazar.
Oh, that's such a great movie.
Which will make the phrase dead ass have a new meaning.
That's really good. That's a great recommendation. Lily, Gather Some Paradise.
Yeah, since we were introduced in ModPo to Anne Waldman this week, I wanted to make a plug for something actually in the Writers' House archives because Anne Waldman was a fellow here last year. So you can, I'll try to post a link in maybe on the Webcast forum, but if you just Google Anne Waldman Writers' House Fellows, you'll find an hour-long amazing performance of her mainly performing from some of her newer work in her book Jaguar Harmonics, but some other performances. And then also an interview and conversation with Julia Block talking about Anne's work. And you can find those all on the Writers' House website, not in ModPo.
Right, and they're fantastic, and they're really easy to find if you just search in a savvy kind of way. We're going to go to Mary and then Carlos, but as you get ready, Carlos, will you bring the mic to CJ so without, he's not prepared, but maybe you could just have a Gathering Paradise, and then to Anna. So, Mary?
because there are so few women beat writers being represented, I want to give another plug for Diane DePrima and her poem, which Nicola referenced upon the death of Amira Baraka. I think that's a beautiful poem, and the ending of that poem really speaks to what we're doing here in ModPo, too.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks for joining us at the table today. CJ, Gather Some Paradise.
So I've been studying Robert Sapolsky's human behavioral biology class online, and with the discussion on the beats and spontaneous, I think one of his online videos on schizoid personality type might be interesting as a way people can, from time to time, spontaneously produce stuff that, you know, might also seem a little insane at the same time.
Yeah, that's such a good recommendation. And I think generally this has nothing to do with specific mental health or mental health diagnosis, but generally the lowering of inhibitions can lead to things that come out of your mouth or are written at the end of the hand with the pen or pencil or fingers on a keyboard that you didn't know you wanted to say. So whether that's a therapeutic situation or whether it's a lowering of inhibitions through meditative meanings or other kinds of trancing that or religious experiences as opposed to chemicals, that all can happen, right? And I think poets, you don't have to be the Baroness to explore this realm, which the poets this week, I'd say Waldman is probably the chief avatar of this, but the poets this week are really interested in that alternate state because someone like Anne thinks there's political and ethical consequences of lowering those inhibitions so that we can get into a rogue state and really call out people who are perpetrating wrongs and not be so reasonable in going about it. It's really quite an amazing thing. So this week has a lot of staying power, I think. Carlos, Gather Some Paradise, please.
This is more looking towards the next week, the New York School. But you sort of touched on Frank O'Hara earlier and his little bit of connection to the beat poets, or I guess in style, spontaneity. And so I'd just say he's one of my favorites.
Great. That's a plug for next week, the New York School. Give the mic to Ben, who didn't know he was going to be asked to gather paradise. You're involved in this whole massive open online world. Say something. Is there paradise there?
I hope so. I think you're bringing a little to it. And,
Ben.
I do.
We kind of bamboozled you into saying something nice. But
No, really, it's true. No, this was a great week to sit in on. You know, as you mentioned, I study risk, and we actually read Mallarmé's Throw Up the Dice last week in our class, and I think to hear this discussion of spontaneity is really an interesting thing for me to consider as he's trying to structure in chance and spontaneity into how people might read that poem. So thanks for helping me to actually consider all these things that you know, are in my world, but not something I do every day. So
that's great.
It's really useful.
The fact is that in this crazy co-curricular, extracurricular situation, there is no such thing as worlds that are separate. They're all convergent. So who cares what curriculum we're in, right? I mean, this was the gist of CJ's comment as well. So he doesn't know we're going to do this, but Carlos, bring the mic to Zach, and while Anna is gathering paradise, Zach is going to think of something paradisal to say about ModPo or the amazing tech that he's doing, and he and Chris, and we'll leave it to Chris to do it next week because the two of them, between the two of them, they're extremely reticent, and we don't want to blow the fuses here. Anna Strong, Gather Some Paradise, please.
I just want to say, if you haven't done so already, I mean, I have so many thoughts about the beats, but I got super tied up on the phone today. But so I'll make sure I address all of these feelings that I have about the beats in my office hour today at 5.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
But I want to say that if you haven't done so already, we recorded this great audio update where we were yesterday. We were listening to our ModPo voicemails. I really had no idea. Speaking of spontaneity, right? I had no idea how this voicemail thing was going to work, but it's been such a ball.
512-95-ModPo.
Yeah. So thank you for all of you who have already called. Thank you so much. For those of you who are thinking about calling, please do it. We really had a great conversation yesterday and just answering more questions. Great. And so thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Zach, Gather Some Paradise, and then I will, and we'll end.
Well, I think Anna took my paradise, which was going to be the ModPo voicemail.
Huh.
So I'll just gather some paradise for our Writers House media in general. So that includes like Pen Sound, Writers House, the Writers House calendar. You can find all these great resources through ModPo, but I really encourage you to dig around through the links that you find on ModPo. Check out all of our great like Pen Sound podcasts. Poem Talk is great. We have a series of Writers House podcasts as well, some of which are produced in the Wexler studio. So that's a shout out for my
Wexler studio. And how
really just-
about Pen Sound Radio?
That's right. So I think we're live streaming. So some of you may know Pen Sound Radio because we live stream the audio of these webcasts on Pen Sound Radio, but it streams 24/7. There's always podcasts or some type of program going on Pen Sound Radio.
Yeah, so when you're driving around or on a bus. Kirby, we're going to have to wrap up. I'm so sorry. Is it a quick? Yep. Okay, get him the mic, and then I will do my paradise, and we'll wrap up today's webcast.
Visual arts equivalent of first thought, best thought, action painting. In the visual arts, Robert Motherwell, Franz Klein, Jackson Pollock, they put the stuff out there right away. They thought it was most important.
Great, fantastic. Okay, for me, Gathering Paradise is just to talk about a few ModPo people because you people are Paradise. Paradise is Vidya, living in Mexico City, working as a professional Spanish interpreter and spending time with us. Melanie Lynn in Vienna, working as an assistant in a theater company. She's posted 7 times to the forums, but think about that. There are some people who've posted hundreds of times, but Melanie has done 7 times. That is fantastic. That is participation. Right? 7 times 23,000 is a lot of posts, if that's what everybody does. Paradise is Ghassan Mustafa Altaji, who's from Jordan. This is his Jordan in the Middle East. This is his 2nd time in ModPo. Thank you, Ghassan. Mark Drexler, the community TA, a longtime ModPoer, who prides himself on having been our chief critic the first year and basically caused all kinds of improvements in the site because he was such a persistent advocate for certain things we could do better, and then we surprised him by asking him to be a community TA. He calls himself a major autodidact, and that is absolutely true. Paradise is Carlos Eduardo Castro Lieva in Chile, an English teacher who loves writing, whose, quote, expectations toward ModPo are the highest since, quote, I hope to take as much from it as possible and use it in the classroom in Chile. Thank you, Carlos. Lee Jacoby, whom we met in Los Angeles on our trip there, an ESL, English as a Second Language teacher, who loves hearing the poems and loves the TAs and loves hearing the voices of the TAs. Yeah, so do I. Marty Campbell, some of us have encountered Marty. He's one of my favorites. I believe this is his first year. He lives at one of the oldest and most famous of the 1960s communes, perhaps one of the few or maybe the only one that's still left from that period. It's famously called The Farm. It is now a land co-op type of intentional community. In 2012, he joined us, but he ran out of internet access as he was traveling in Central America that autumn, and now he's back. And he loves everybody's camaraderie and, quote, is grateful for this place. And that's saying something if you live at the farm, if you think that this is a good communal place. He says, I'm grateful for this place. So while we're not, here's my paradise, utopian paradise. So we're not a commune, to say the least. I mean, there's some things about communes that are much more serious than what we're doing. But frankly, the idea of the farm, I want everybody to know, is a particular influence on my development as in college and in graduate school. And it is one of the convergent influences of ModPo, of a certain kind of pedagogy. I think we are, above all, an intentional community, what Ray Maxwell calls the beloved community, an interpretive community. Or in the words, one more time, and I won't repeat them after this, summarizing what I was trying to say at that conference, we're aiming for, quote, and this is the tweet from someone else, a learning community of unprecedented size coming together and interacting in order to make something new and then to be open and responsive to that newness. The last part is really, really hard. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody. Erica, Emily, Max, Molly, here in the room, Kirby, Ben, CJ, and Philip, and Kate, and Nicola, and others who called today. Thank you so much. Mary, thank you for joining us at the table. This was great. Thank you.
I enjoyed myself.
Lily, as always, you're fantastic.
Thanks.
Jason, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Jason, thank you. Erica, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Al. Good to see you as
Yes,
always.
same here. Always good. Max, have a great day out there in Chicagoland and root for my Mets.
Yeah, thanks, Al. You too. Have a good one.
Okay, and Molly, take care out on the West Coast. Be well.
Thanks, Al. You too.
Goodbye, everybody. Okay, and Carlos and Anna. Carlos and Anna, thank you so much. Zach and Chris, you guys are amazing. Anna, dealing with that phone call that kept disconnecting. We're sorry, but it happens sometimes. It's called a POTS line, a plain old telephone service, POTS, and POTS doesn't quite work. Signing off from Philadelphia, USA, and ModPo. We will see you around the forums. We'll see you in Facebook. We'll see you on Twitter. We will see you next week in a live webcast. And please call us 512-95-ModPo. Take care.